Today we are exploring a model designed to understand how trade networks interact with different fish resources to ensure fish provision. This model uses a multi-method approach combining agent-based modeling, network analysis, and qualitative data. It's based on a case study of small-scale fisheries and aims to explore the social-ecological connections in fish trade and how these networks lead to important outcomes for the resilience of fish provision. So, before we start the conversation, could you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Emily Lindqvist, and I work at the Stockholm Resilience Center, Stockholm University. And I use agent-based modeling as one of my main tools, combined with other methods. So that's why I work with Blanca here.
Yeah, so I'm Blanca Gonzalez. I'm also working at the Stockholm Resilience Center, and I would say I mainly use empirical methods in different kind of contexts of food systems. But I also work with different modeling tools, with network analysis, and now with agent-based modeling in this project with Emily, which was part of my PhD research.
So, could you explain the main objectives of this model? Specifically, how does it help us understand the trade offs and interactions between trade networks and fish resources?
Yeah, so the purpose of the model was to understand the role of local trade networks for fish availability in fish markets. And so we looked at two types of fish represented as low value fish and high value fish, and how their catchability or access was differing through time. And so we were interested in what the role of trade networks were for reducing waste in different areas, but also making sure that there's enough fish for each of the markets, the low value and the high value. And specifically, so how horizontal trade could work in this context.
So, as for my second question, what were some difficulties you faced while developing the model? And I'm just curious, was it challenging to integrate qualitative data, network analysis, and agent-based modeling into a cohesive framework?
Yeah, that was challenging. um, I think actually the main challenge was for us to kind of move from the empirical data to formalizing functions in the model. And often there were contradicting answers that would tell us, oh, you should do it this way or that way. And then we had to interpret this analysis through Blanca's fieldwork understanding, because we could say also that the data builds on her fieldwork in Mexico. So she had uh, interviews and observations from a lot of different fish traders. And so maybe you want to elaborate a bit on the challenges that you felt.
Yeah,
I know you did.
I think just so that you can imagine as well, doing this was a collaborative process between Emily and myself. So I came with all that empirical information, very rich data. Sorry. And from that, as you would imagine, is very hard to translate into, well, how are the traders making decisions? Do they ask for the fish, or is the fisher offering the fish? That's just a very simple example. Well, the data said all of those kind of things, and in different ways, right? So you need to decide how to go from all that complexity of the data to formalize it into specific rules for the model, right? So that was very challenging, and it was in the end part of a collaborative process of many whiteboards, Emily and I meeting many times, and to try to find the best way to actually work with empirical data and do something empirical informed while also being able to reduce that complexity into a workable, understandable model.
Regarding the results of the model analysis, what insights have emerged from analyzing the model? And have you observed any surprising trends in how trade networks influence fish provision resilience.
Yes, so we'll just show a couple of scenarios, but first, just to say, the model is spatial in the sense that we have two regions where traders are active and buy fish. And this is the left is region 1, and then we have region 2. They fish the small low value and the high value in both regions and sell to one market consisting of the low value and high value. And
so we have the low value fish going to the low value market, the high value fish going to high value market.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And in the first example we show, there is no trade between these two regions, and there's a seasonal ban on the low value species in region 1.
Yep.
Right. So we can basically go, I think.
So what we see here is basically in that screen where you see the low, yeah. Wait,
what is this one?
Where you see this low, which one? Ah, that one. Sorry. Where you see the low value species here going down in the demand is basically because there is that fish cannot be fished in that region during part of the year, that part of the year that we see going down, and the traders cannot trade, so they just keep basically doing what they usually do, and there's just like less fish in the market than what the demand wants because they are not catching it, right? Now what happens when we have a network? Let's see. And we can show here the simplest network, which is just theoretical network, that basically implies that each trader in one region is trading with a trader in another region, right? Yeah. So this is just for simplicity so that you can see an easy way of the analysis, right? Of course, we do that with empirical network too. So what we see when we have this network is, as you see, a different result, right? I mean, maybe we cannot appreciate it so much in these plots, but
this is new, right?
Yeah, what is new there exactly is that one of the key things is that the scarcity of fish in the market is less, basically. That was one of the things that we see. So the trade network manages to supply fish in the market to cover the demand better than when we don't have any network, right? So the network is allowing to do that function of then even if there is no fish, I'm managing to get more fish to the market. However, what is also happening, and you see in the exploitation index plot below, is that the low value species in one of the regions, the region where it's not seasonal, it's decreasing, right? So the way in which they are managing to supply fish in the market is by overexploiting the fish in the other region. And this is working because the trader sees that they don't have any fish. They request that fish to the other trader. And then the other traders perceive that there is a much bigger need for fish than what there was before. So they go and fish harder of that fish that is needed in order to sell to the other traders and to the market. So that is what we mean with cascading effects. A ban, for example, and that you cannot fish a species in one region, through this market demand and through the trade network, makes that species in another region becomes overexploited. But at the same time, they manage to actually supply the fish with the markets, right? So we could say it's managing to deal with the fluctuations for the market, but it's also overexploited. So we have all of these effects between the two regions, the two species, and the two different markets.
You have made this model available using ComSys.NET platform. Did preparing it for this platform involve specific challenges? I mean, in documentation or in terms of reusability and being user friendly?
I think it helped a lot, actually, in different aspects. I mean, if you document properly using the ODD and also while you code, you always document as much as you can, then it was not a lot of work to follow the guidelines to upload it. But you wanted also to have the documentation, for instance, in the info tab, to say what each and every button is about, and so that of course is some extra work. However, I've been using, or we have been using the model in teaching, for instance, so it's also been really helpful for us actually when saying to the students, you could download the model at ComSys, and then it's well documented, and then we just provide some extra material for them to do the lab with the models. So I think it's been a great asset to have it in this place, and we put all our models there, and also to have it peer reviewed helps a lot to share the model in a more I say, well, you have this DOI number, and it becomes just more easy to cite when you're asking requesting funds or grant writing and all these processes. So I think it's been really, really useful to put it there, and also to have the peer review function available.
What's the next step for this model? Are there plans to explore, additional variables that could influence trade network dynamics or fish resource resilience?
Yeah. So this model was developed a few years ago, right, as part of Blanca's PhD. And I think we've both used the insights and the results from the model in different ways. I've taken, for instance, the trade functionality now into a palm oil case to look at palm oil trade. So in that sense, like the basics of it, but it's then transformed into a quite new type of modeling, right? So we didn't take this specific model in the fisheries forward because, we didn't have the opportunity basically for funding reasons, I guess. But then also I've developed it to octopus fishery model in Zanzibar, working much more with this type of empirical data that Blanca started us off with. But not necessarily incorporating these types of advanced networks. So more using the predefined networks in NetLogo to look at kinship and these types of networks, but not as advanced as Blanca, because you also need the data collection component, right, to work with the networks that we had in this model.
Thank you very much for sharing these insights.
Thank you
Thank you
for having us.
it was a pleasure.